Rjoy.
My name is Liana Hudson, Communications Associate.
I'm Malachi, I'm the Reentry Community Restorative Justice Coordinator.
Nilama Upamaka. I'm the Gender Responsive Restorative Justice Coordinator.
My name is Jody Geddes. I am the Community Risk Organizing Coordinator. In addition to that, I also lead our Truth and Reconciliation Initiative.
Hi, I'm Shalita Williams, intern with Rjoy.
My name is Cameron Simmons, title is Youth Advocate.
My name is Kat Kohlberg, and I'm Project Director for Restorative Reentry, and I work with the Community Restorative Justice.
The most significant shift in the last year is really around the core work. So historically, for Rjoy, we had put most of our energy into disrupting the school to prison pipeline, and the attention has been on schools. And we've become known nationally and even internationally for our work with schools. We were effective in getting Oakland Unified School District to adopt restorative practices as the official school policy district-wide rather than punitive policy. And we were also effective in getting Oakland Unified School District to hire 30 to 35 restorative justice coordinators at their schools throughout the district, and to implement or to adopt a $3 to $4 million a year budget. So we feel very successful in that work, but from the inception of Rjoy, it's always been the vision to have both, to do both work in the school system and in the prison and criminal justice system, particularly the juvenile justice system. And so we have always had our toes or fingertips in that work, but this year has been a deepening and broadening, at least in vision, mission, values of that work with formerly incarcerated people in communities, as well as formerly incarcerated people in or incarcerated people in the juvenile justice system. So people in custody in juvenile hall and people in Camp Sweeney. We had a bunch of challenges with contracting that delayed or created like a break in our work in Camp Sweeney for a couple months, and so we intensified our work in juvenile hall at that time. So I would just say that we were kind of revamping the protocols and the ways in which we do work with people in custody. And what we had found is that originally, when we first started doing this work, we were very successful in reducing recidivism. So when we first started doing this work, we were the only organization doing juvenile justice recidivism work for reentry, and using a restorative approach. And we were effective in reducing recidivism from 90 to 75% down to like 25 to 40%. So that's a statistically significant change that we were able to really attribute to our restorative justice work.
It was a continuation school, which is like the last stop before you're out of the school district entirely. And overall, he seemed to be doing well, but there were other things happening in his life that were presenting obstacles to his success. And we didn't really know that that was going on. So issues around money, around housing, and around mental health and use and drug use, that he was doing a pretty good job masking to the school and also to us. And it turned out that he ended up getting involved in some criminal behavior based on the poverty, based on the stress and anxiety related to the family relationships and the homelessness that resulted in him being in a situation where he did robbery, and he ended up back in the hall, in juvenile hall. So instead of throwing him away and saying, we're done with you, we continued to visit him in the hall and continued the work that we were doing around wrapping a circle of support and accountability around him, going up to the jail to meet with him and support him, and also hold him accountable to his plans for after he left the system. So even though he was having success, he had a roadblock that resulted in incarceration, but we understand at Rjoy that that's part of the story. When you're not changing the environment around poverty, homelessness, trauma, and they go back to the same environment, the odds are that that's going to happen again, that the cycle will continue. So we, as we try to do with all youth and their families, do not throw them away. We don't call them out, we call them in. And we stayed with him through his entire term of his incarceration, including his graduating from high school and coming back out into community, created a new circle of support and accountability around him at Rjoy, where all staff members and some community members met with him, and he is now doing restorative justice work on his own and going to college. So it is a slow and steady process. Transformation is slow and steady for all of us, but especially for those that have these basic human needs that are not being met around food, around mental health support, around education, and we see that. So the whole thing around reentry and our youth is we have to address those unmet needs. A circle alone is not enough. We have to address those unmet needs that are resulting in choices that are getting our youth in jail or killed. And so that is what a circle of support and accountability really is saying, what are the unmet needs? What are the root causes to this behavior? Is this youth acting out because he's stressed and angry because he himself has been hurt? Or is this youth acting out because he doesn't have any money in his pocket and his mama doesn't have any money in his pocket and he's gonna find some money to feed his baby brother and to feed his mama? But we criminalize that behavior instead of addressing the unmet need. So that's a big part of our reentry, and I think that that example of that youth that I gave is a great illustration of how if you keep returning to what's going on authentically that's causing him roadblocks, ultimately you will be able to bring out the true magic of that person. And that's what we've seen with him, to the point where he is now speaking at our going away party for our founder, Fonda Davis, is someone that has been impacted positively by Rjoy, but also who continues to impact Rjoy positively. So it's an each one teach one idea.
In terms of the community organizing, it went very well this past year. We did a lot of engagement with young people out in the community across different races. And that was really incredible to see a lot of our Southeast Asian population come out, our Asian American population come out and really be in community with us. There are increasing rates of incarceration amongst Hmong residents, which is very high within the Oakland area. And so really thinking about the ways we expand to a larger demographic. And a lot of that came out of switching the location, that we were having some of our community events and meetings at, increasing the amount of community events we did. One of the most successful events was actually a screening of the film 13 that we hosted at one of our local libraries that we work in partnership with. And it was so many young people there, and even the ones that couldn't stay for the whole event because it was on a school night, they even asked me, pulled me aside and asked me, hey, where can I watch this film? It was really interesting, and so it was nice to see young people really beginning to take initiative and wanting to learn more about incarceration. And a lot of that just came from the work that our youth were doing in terms of planning events and facilitating the group discussions after the events.
But I've done Rjoy at Roots and CCPA on the Havens Court, 164th. There's also school work being done at Frick Middle School. We do Rjoy work all over the place, and what it looks like is Rjoy in schools. What it looks like is literally training students to be their own agents. Honestly, like we're training students to conduct their own circles so that they can do this mediation work themselves and we don't have to be there, because a part of it is equipping youth with the tools in order to be their own agents. Like equipping youth with the tools in order to facilitate their own circles, to mediate their own problems, to mediate their own predicaments. Like we're not trying to be here the whole entire time. And so we train youth leaders in order to do the work themselves.
So our Truth and Reconciliation work is incredible, and it's national, and so we've worked with many different organizations that also work nationally, locally, internationally, and so some of those are coming to the table. That was birthed in Harrisonburg, Virginia, that really works with the descendants of those who were enslaved and enslavers. And so incredible work. They just released a reparations document. We've worked with the Truth Telling Project that birthed after the murder of Mike Brown in Ferguson. And so there are so many organizations that we're in relationship with right now, especially as we're doing our mapping initiatives work. So looking at the places and people who are doing the work and how do we kind of help to elevate that and shine a light on the work that they're doing, because people often feel like they're doing the work alone. Even if there are others in the community, they just don't know about them, so we're really trying to be the connector. One of the organizations that we've really sought to build a relationship with is the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference. They do some amazing work, and actually in February they're going to be hosting a convening around truth and reconciliation, particularly looking at economic justice. There are going to be a bunch of hearings that are taking place within Memphis, Tennessee, and they're also looking to look at different topics as they continue to wrestle with what does truth and reconciliation look like. I can name so many different organizations that are doing this work with us and building with us. There's a collaborative right now that actually just reached out to us that's particularly focused on police harm and police brutality, that have really said, how can I be a part of this map, but how can we also support other people who are doing truth and reconciliation work, particularly around police community relations. Reparations has been a booming conversation. There's been a booming conversation around reparations, and even within that, a lot of people have named that restorative justice and learning about circle process is a high priority for them, which is important for us because our truth and reconciliation work is really embedded within restorative justice. And so it's amazing to see folks saying that I want to learn more about restorative justice and what does a restorative truth and reconciliation process look like, and for us to be in partnership with folks to think about that.
So right now we are holding 2 circles, gender-specific circles. So the first circle is happening at Missy, which is in downtown Oakland, and that's really geared towards the young women who are receiving services through Missy. Missy's an organization that's dedicated to ending sex trafficking amongst our young women. And then we're also holding intergenerational women's circles at the Rjoy offices. The most important thing that has come up for me this past year, and just like sharing stories with other young women, has been the need to like talk about self-care, especially in restorative justice circle processes that we often are sharing so deeply and about very traumatic things that have happened in our lives. So we can have that like group support, right? But like, how do we take care of ourselves after we leave the circle space, and how can we support each other in implementing that self-care within our lives?
A big, huge accomplishment for the year was the co-chairing by Fania Davis and myself of the National Association of Community and Restorative Justice conference. It was the largest conference of restorative justice practitioners in the history of the movement in the modern era. We had 1,500 people there, over 1,300 registered. We were able to get foundation support to completely cover the airfare, hotel, food, and conference registration accommodations for 100 formerly incarcerated young people and adults, as well as to host 80 youth at the conference. And so it was just a conference that really celebrated the indigenous roots of restorative justice and offered, optimal ways of Rjoy connecting with the larger national and international community of restorative justice practitioners. And so we did it in a style that was really heartwarming to so many people who were in attendance, and really changed the movement to acknowledge the indigenous roots of restorative justice and to really celebrate marginalized voices, and particularly voices of people of color, moving them from the margins to the center.